Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, we're continuing our conversation with the legend in education from India, Arun Kapur. Yesterday, we had an amazing conversation on his journey with Vasant Valley, and today we're looking at his new avatar in all the good stuff that he's doing. So, Arun, let's continue with our conversation. We've been speaking about Vasant Valley, but there's so much more that you have done. So let's start with Pallavan School. What got you to start the school, and what are the objectives?
Okay, so very interesting part of my life, and that's also about food. Just a quick remind, I started teaching at the Doon School, which was an all-boy residential school from grade 6 to 12.
Correct.
Then I taught in England again with an all-boys school. I came back to India. I was at the British School, which is a co-educational day school, so completely different from my experience so far. And the British School had been mostly expats, who were there for a short time. Then when I started Vasant Valley School, I realized that there was a lot of stuff that needed to be done in my understanding, in my learning of when they came into the school. And I realized that, so that was one part that made me understand.
Correct.
And then I did a lot of work for almost 9 years in Tihar Jail, part of my NGO, where I used to go in every day in the evening at about 4 o'clock and was there for 4 or 5 hours. And I was working with boys from the age of 16 to 21 and, who were in jail for various reasons. And I was also, through my NGO, running a night school at the INA market for the coolies there.
Okay.
So I was working with these two sets of people who were from basically, in many ways, the similar socio-economic background. One were in conflict with the law, one was not in conflict with the law. So I was trying to see what was the difference. And I was also working at the Vasant Valley School from a completely different socio-economic background. I'd been at the Doon School with a completely different, but I started noticing lots of similarities also, right? And I was trying to figure out why were some people in conflict with the law, some where we have. So that I realized going down, and this is scientifically proven, something that the first few years of your life make you who you are in many, many ways. Of course, you add on. So I wanted to understand that, and therefore at Vasant Valley School at that point in time, we started at the age of 4, right? And I realized I wanted to know what happens, and how do we modify or intervene or give inputs before 4. There was no chance of doing that. So to satisfy that is when I set up the Pallavan preschools. It was also a process of learning for me, right? And when I was very fortunate to have Renu call with me, who we put this whole thing together. So, and there was a great need that I saw from the kids who were coming into Vasant Valley School, right? Where they were coming from preschools where they had already been, put through a learning process.
Correct.
Right, the alphabet and holding pencils and this, that, and the other. When they are, the muscles in their fingers had not grown enough to hold a pencil, but they were coming from preschools. So I knew that there was a gap there, not only for me, but also for the children. But I also realized that there would be a big clash of interest. That if I was running a preschool, and then the whole aspect of getting admission into Vasant Valley School, people would see that, I've set this up to, So it was from day one, from the second year, in fact, we made it a point that nobody from Pallavan School would be able to get into Vasant Valley School. So if you were wanting to come to Pallavan, you were coming to Pallavan not as a shortcut to the Vasant Valley School. So then, they, because of what we were doing, and again, like in Vasant Valley School, managed to get some amazing people. And my journey throughout is that, if you have wonderful people around you, they just take the whole boat across. It's not just, So Pallavan that is why it was started. And then we set up something called Pallavanjali, which was for children with special needs. Pallavan, by the way, means the growth of a new leaf.
Okay.
It's not a new leaf. It's the growth process.
Growth of a new leaf. Okay.
So that is where we looked at it,
Wow.
and then we set up Pallavanjali. Yeah, Anjali, means the hands together. So the growth of a new leaf with some protection around it.
Correct.
So Pallavan and Pallavanjali both kind of grew and are still. It's just that last year, because of the COVID and the little kids, that we've had to. But Pallavanjali still functions a lot. And what I was amazed, and again, these are people, people, and there were lots of kids in Pallavanjali who needed speech therapy or needed occupational therapy, and now the lockdown didn't allow that. My speech therapist and my occupational therapist actually did this online.
Amazing.
And so effectively. This has been a eye-opener for many people. So that is what the Pallavan story is, and that's where the...
And now let's move to Ritinjali.
Ritinjali goes back even earlier than that. Ritinjali is again a Sanskrit word which means helping hands.
Right.
So the problem with Ritinjali and it being based in Delhi is that Delhi has mostly Punjabis like me, whose English is a little convoluted. So they, instead of saying Ritinjali, which means helping hands, they pronounce it Ritanjali, which means empty hands.
That's a good anecdote. Okay.
Right. So this is something that again has been part of my life since I was a kid. Being involved with when I was in school in Asansol, living with my grandfather and my grandmother and my parents. So that is when you're talking about inspirations and those kind of people. My grandfather was a huge source of information, self-made man, completely didn't go to school and just built himself up to be something fantastic. And a lot of that, what he did was all on his own, and he had his kids, and then he had his moral rearmament movement. And anyway, so from a very small age, being influenced by my paternal grandfather, right, who was very strong on these kind of issues of making sure that you shared whatever you had, right, whether it was your thoughts or your money or your opportunities. So that was where it kind of started for me. My maternal grandfather, who unfortunately I didn't know that was the professor of maths and the principal of a college in Srinagar. And from my mother's side of the family, I also learned a lot. So this has been part of my system. When I was in the Doon school, I used to do a lot of work with people who couldn't quite get what I thought was a fair share of the human agenda. So when I was in Delhi, and again part of the Vasant Valley experience in some ways, I realized that doing a lot of work to expand that, you need to be structured in some way. Right? So that's where it was necessary to put this little group of people together. And then there were also the Renukals of the world and all my other friends and my family and my sisters. We got together. But also we were quite clear in our minds from Ritinjali that this was not going to be a vehicle for us.
Okay.
Right? And therefore we did our best constantly whenever we did any work to stay out of the news, so that we didn't want anybody to get on to our or join us as volunteers. It's a voluntary organization. And we've done they've done some amazing work, and so that's how it was, just a small group working in the slums around us first. And then we did a lot of work as reaction to natural calamities.
Okay.
Right, but there was a earthquake in Kutch. We went there. Where after the tsunami, I spent 2 months in a village over there. I and P. Mohan were one of the first people to go out onto the sea on a boat post the tsunami. And I tell you, that was a crazy experience. When there was the whole village came onto the beach to push us out, because they had no idea. Their mother had turned against them. When the tsunami had happened. And then we went out, and there was this tents, and then they threw this net out, and they caught a little bit of fish and a little bit more and a little bit more. Not much, not their normal catch, but there was still fish. And then when we came back to show that, it's one of my most crazy experiences when these people on the boat showed the fish to the villagers, and almost like it was a strange sound that went up on the village. They that the mother had forgiven them.
Wow.
That it was still willing to provide for them. So those so there's the tsunami, the Kutch, Kashmir, in Ladakh, we had some amazing people Biplap Agarwal doctors who just gave up everything and went and stayed there for 3 months. So that's what Ritinjali does. It goes in there. So wherever we go in after a natural calamity, people are struggling to get their lives back together. And because we come from a situation, what we do is quickly set up a kind of a school. I'm using the words loosely. So the people can leave their kids with us.
Okay.
Safely, and then get on and get their life back together. And then we try and see the government school nearby. How do we support it? But we are also very clear in our minds. We don't want to become a permanent crutch.
Okay.
We want to go in, get the people, help them after this, and help them stand on their own feet, and then move away. Because it's very easy to become a permanent crutch, and then you're no longer a helping hand. And then because then you're creating opportunities for yourself. Correct. So if you are not able to do that, so Ritinjali continues to go. Just now, in fact, the last few days, Delhi weather, cold, we're distributing blankets all over the place. So that has been much appreciated. And we do, that's an annual thing. We collect blankets, we get things. And we run education centers. Most importantly, in Ritinjali, we run something called a second chance school. It's a residential program. It's for children who did not get the first chance, right? And these are kids who are again 14 and above. Again, my experience on Tihar and the night school. But this is a residential school. Now we get kids from all over the country.
Amazing.
So they stay with us for about 2 years, and we teach them reading, writing. Most of them never been to school, and then we send out and get them to work in various situations. Amazing. We've got some people working with the Oberoi. The Oberoi hotels, I must say, were the first one who kind of reached out to us with both the special needs and these. So we've got people working in all sorts of places who.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you to pause again, and I'm going to ask you now to move to your new innings. In your new avatar at Bhutan, where you told me yesterday that you went at the invitation of His Highness.
His Majesty, yeah.
Right, His Majesty. So, help me understand, what are you doing at the Royal Academy?
I'm sure a lot of people want to know that, even me.
Okay. Okay.
So now what we're doing here is that there was this whole situation when we talked about, and I had written a book called Leading Out, The True Meaning of Education, in some ways. And that I had met His Majesty in Delhi at one of the conferences, at the India Today conference, in fact. And we had got along quite well. And I had requested him to write the foreword for that book, and he quite enjoyed that book. And that is where I set out my ideas about the 5 areas of development. So this whole thing is based on that, but then His Majesty takes these things and take them to a completely different level. So the germ might have been mine, but his vision is taken it to a completely different level. So we have an education learning system, a learning process in place, based on the 5 areres of development.
These 5 areas of development are for an individual, for a country, for an institution?
So there's cerebral, there's physical, there's social, emotional, and spiritual.
Okay.
So these are the 5 areas.
Understand.
Right? So these are now extrapolated to the individual, students and teachers, to the whole school, the area. And we made in 2016, when Finland was getting ready to celebrate its 100th year of independence from Russia, they were looking across the world for many educational institutions, innovations. They found us. How they found us, I have no idea. What they said was that there were many such theories which were written about. But this was one of the few theories that had not only been written about, but had actually transferred into practice, so that the Royal Academy, the school at the Royal Academy, functions on this. So since then, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and now 2021 also, the government of Finland, and through an organization called 100, has recognized these 5 areas of development as quite innovative. So we do that. Okay. And we are now a teacher training program, a teacher development program. So the Royal Academy is actually made up of 3 things. One is a research center. We do research into how children should learn, how assessments and reporting and all those aspects, which are very important, and technology, because technology is growing so fast. Then there is a teacher development center on the other side, which takes all the research that is done from the research center and converts it into how to get it into the minds of the teachers, people who want to become teachers. And between these two is a school at the Royal Academy,
Okay.
right? Where there are 20 districts in Bhutan. We have kids from all 20 districts. So it's one of the few institutions in Bhutan, in many parts of the world, where very deliberately there's a national representation
Wow.
from all parts. So they're the children who are here, and we deliberately have not just taken people who have topped the exam. Then what are we bringing to the table?
Correct.
Right, so we have 60 kids in a year group. 40 of them come, two each from each of the 20 districts. So those are kids who've done well, but not necessarily right on top. And then there are 20 kids who've done really well nationally. So there's a good mix from there. Our teachers again are from all over the world. We have teachers coming from Brazil and from England and from America and India, Australia. So that's a good mix that we have over here. And our school sat for the national examination, grade 10 and 12, like in India, there's a grade 10 and a 12 exam. So these kids, our first batch, who were really people who had not seen much before, and when they sat for the national exam, they surprised all of us. We were hoping that they did really, really well.
Wow.
So there was proof in the of that what we were doing, but it was not the fantastic results did not come at the cost of everything else. It's very easy to drop everything and just study, and that's why the 5 areas kick in. The cerebral development is not just academic.
Okay.
Right? So in the cerebral development, there is more than academics that's happening. But you cannot do even that academic thing at the cost of your social development, your emotional development, your physical development, and your spiritual development. So that is what this holistic, and if I may use your platform to have a little bit of a pitch for something that I'm using for this word holistic, all over the place is spelled HOLIST. And I say no, HOL means a hole in the ground. And if you're meaning holistic, then you must spell it WHO. Right? And this is a little battle that I'm fighting, but I'm not really getting anywhere. So I request you through your platform to get more and people to understand that this word, if you're using the word holistic, it must be WHO. And not necessarily HOL.
I agree with you. No, I remember some of your wise words. I've always quoted them. I remember in '96 when I came to you with my sons, and you asked them, "What do you want to be to your sons?" And I said, "A friend." And so you're going to ask your neighbor to be their father. I don't know how many people, and that was such an incredible commentary you gave to me. So Arun, I'm going to keep moving on. I want to ask you a few questions about you now.
Oh no.
As an educator, someone who's built one of the finest institutions as an education institution in India, probably. What are some of the core values you believe in?
For me, a very important aspect is to de-jargonize anything that you're doing, right? Because it's very easy to get lost in that.
Correct.
Bring it down to the lowest common denominator. That's the best way to bring about it. So, and what I feel strongly, this whole word value is so value loaded in itself. The word itself, what are your core values? I don't know what my core values. I know that there are times when it's very, very important to reach out and to learn and to share. So that is what I said. That is what I've got is available to anybody.
Fair enough.
So that's if I was to say that.
Well said. But therefore, a follow-up question for you is that, in our last so many minutes of conversation, every success you have credited to great teams. My question to you is, what is your leadership style that you have such great teams?
Well, I think if I was kind of to look, I don't think I have a leadership style. I mean, that would be horrible to say if I have a leadership style. My thing is that to try and find as many people from whom I can learn and who themselves want to learn.
Okay.
So create a learning space, right? Because if the adults in this whole equation are not in a learning space, there's no way they're going to get the children in there into the learning mode.
Hmm.
Right? That is a very important aspect. And just going back, sorry to go back to Vasant Valley School 30 years ago, 32 years ago, when I was asked, why are you setting up another school and what's so different? So I had said at that point of time that in Vasant Valley School, we don't teach. So we said, what do you mean you don't teach? So we said, yeah, because, and I think I might have said this yesterday, I don't remember now, that you have to go into a classroom and help children to learn. So if that is to happen, then I have to be in a learning mode myself all the time, right? I might have ideas, right? But there is so much that I can't do. And if I pretend even for a second that I know it all, it's going to fall flat on my face because there's nobody who knows it all. Nobody's perfect. We are human beings.
Correct.
And if we are human beings in the learning space, and we need to be in the learning mode ourselves. Who do you learn from? Your colleagues, and the other thing which I think my colleagues might not agree. I have no problems about saying, "Oh, I got that wrong."
Okay. Yeah, that's a very, very, very important strength to have.
I have none of the ego situation that because I got this idea, now it's not working, but we have to continue. I am the first one to say abort, even though it was my idea.
Well said, well said. So now I have time for two more questions for you.
Oops.
And these are both going to be questions for you personally. For someone who's seen so much, who's probably, given incredible inputs to thousands of children who have prospered and are prospering all over the world, what does success mean to Arun?
Success means to Arun. I think it means joy.
Okay.
For me, not joy just for me, but if I am in any kind of sphere of activity or thinking or interaction, if I think, I'm not trying to be on a thing, but if I think that in what I'm doing, if I'm helping to bring joy into people's lives and my own life, success.
Correct. Okay. And therefore a follow-up question to that is that, you keep doing so many different things. You keep pushing yourself to do amazing things all over the country, outside the country. What or who inspires you?
First of all, I'll just change a little bit of your question. No, I don't push myself.
Okay.
That's one thing that, these are not things, I have to.
No, I understand. Okay. I stand corrected on that one.
So I do a lot of things because I enjoy them. I love them. I've done stuff in Myanmar and Nepal and Bangladesh and Thailand, all in the same sphere of trying to give opportunities to people to learn to stand on their own feet. That's basically my mantra, if there is any mantra. Your question is what inspires me? I wish I could say to you something, somebody, it's homegrown. It's my grandfather, it's my parents, it's my sisters, it's my daughters.
Yeah.
And I just want, I heard stories from my grandfather and my father, and I saw in my own life with my parents, we went through lots of ups and downs, financially. And they were never, ever bitter. It was never, why is this happening to us? So there was this with my mom, especially, and with my dad. He had a completely wacky sense of humor. And my mom was just amazing. There was never any, poor me kind of situation.
I know. I've known your mom well, been to your house many times.
Right. So that is, if there is some inspiration that it is from here, from, and that's what I also want to create to everybody and say, listen, your inspiration is with you. If you have to go, of course, read books and of course, look up to whatever needs to be done, learn from that. But if what is under your nose you can't see, then you're not going to see much outside. So whatever kind of home you come from, home is where it all begins.
Okay.
Whether you take it as an advantage or a disadvantage and you want to make it better, or you see it as an advantage and you want to share it. So that for me is I don't know whether I've answered your question.
No, you answered the question. So I'm going to, even though we're now out of time, but I'm going to ask this one last question. And this question is that if you, Arun, were followed by millions of children, I know you're followed by thousands of children, who closely followed you and your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
What I would change in myself? Ooh. I never thought what would I change in myself just now? I think I would push myself a little harder,
Okay.
right? There have been times when I have to say I'm the laziest guy in the world.
Okay, doesn't look like it, but
I'm saying that's what I think of myself.
okay.
Okay? I would like to change that
Mhm.
perspective of myself,
Okay.
right? And I think laziness and daydreaming are the best tools that you have, with the strengths that you have. So I would not want to remove them,
Mhm.
but at least not start off by saying, this will happen.
Wonderful.
I don't know whether that.
No, it's
I'm
very
very
good. I
happy.
mean,
I'm not saying that I'm not full of flaws. I have lots and lots and lots of flaws.
mhm.
But it's difficult for me to see which one would I change.
Well said. Well said. Arun, thank you so much. It's been such a joy and pleasure. One, speaking to you. Second, getting to know you so much better. I wish you lots of success in everything that you're doing.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to think, introspect to myself. These are things that you don't get to do.
Correct.
So thank you for that. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to think of.
Thank you
just
again.
myself.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Lots of love. Hope to see you soon. Keep safe.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.